So I have to be able to talk.
It's 7, Greg's out.
Greg's out?
Yep.
Recording in progress.
Don't move that clock. It is 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order
That's slow.
and welcome you to the select board meeting for April 16th, 2024. I'll ask everyone to rise, please, for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Now, is the time for public comments. If anybody has anything that they want to talk about that's not on the agenda, feel free to raise your hand and I'll ask you to go to the podium to speak so that if we have anybody on, well, we have GNAT on the Zoom meeting, they'll be able to hear you. Yes.
Just me? You can come up with me. Oh, no. How does that work? Is our time doubled since we're both here, or should she come after me, or Lucy? All right.
I guess the Zoom link isn't working.
I'm Tim Rice,
I checked in.
106 Palmer Place. This is Jessica Rice. We decided to come last time we met here in this ongoing saga of the zoning change for our property. We just asked for an update, of the status update, and we were very satisfied when we left that this would be happening after a couple of years of going through the steps to get this zoning change. We thought it'd be happening, I think we talked about around July. Since then, there's been a couple of wrinkles evidently, and there was an objection from the church. I don't know how many folks were here at the planning board meeting. We were not, but we heard all about it from what happened last night. So the Zion Church is an abutter of our property, and they had an objection about the change. I actually met with Reverend Frederickson today, and I think all his objections have been met. I think we're on the same page now. He was worried about people coming through his property. I told him I would put a fence up and signage. He was worried about the road, the access road being too narrow. The fellows, the family that owns the old tavern is widening that road. Even though it's been that way for decades, he's going to widen it anyway. So that was also something he was concerned about that's been addressed or will be addressed. And he was worried about possible criminal activity, but we talked about that and he said, I guess that's silly because it could happen anywhere. So I don't think criminals are going to go see foreign movies at my movie theater and buy old books, but who knows?
Good.
So I just wanted to say that we have addressed his concerns, I think. We have an abutting neighbor here, Will Drucker. He was also going to speak on our behalf because he's in favor of the zoning change as well. So I just wanted to recognize Will and thank him for coming.
Deeply into it. It's technically not in our court yet. So anything that you're free to talk about anything you want, but all this would.
And I reckon
to the zoning change would come in under the public hearing, once the planning commission has moved it along. Anything that's particular to your application really doesn't apply to the zoning change itself. I mean, I realize it gets a little bit convoluted because you may be the only one really affected by this, but the zoning change has to be considered in a general sense. But when you submit an application under the change, it has to meet all the underlying criteria that goes with that zone. So if the zoning change takes place, it doesn't guarantee that you get a permit if you don't meet the underlying criteria that would grant you a permit under the whatever the final configuration of zoning is. So it's a little bit premature for us to discuss your particular project, but having said that, it's your particular project that's precipitating the change. So it's one of those chicken and egg kind of things. And we're just having a general discussion here under public discussion. So
We did, excuse me,
I don't want to get too deeply into the particulars of your application. Since the planning commission has already heard this, I don't know if they've heard this particular information because this is probably since their meeting. So it might be interesting for you to reveal some of this stuff to us, but we're walking a very fine line of propriety here.
yeah, we just wanted to kind of preempt the next
I
meeting and
understand.
kind of,
I think
you know,
this may be helpful to doing that, so.
in the license that I have to sell books there, we had discussed with Janet Hurley way back when, what was going to be happening on the premises, as a preemptor to the zoning change. So, do you want to say anything?
I don't know that there's any, I think I was at the last meeting and just like to double check our process next. So there were objections at the planning board meeting last night. And I just, like, where are we in the process then? So there's been objections, but then there's been like a private meeting addressing those objections, and we should go to the next planning board meeting, or things are just taking place behind the scenes and we just need to wait and see how it comes out? What happens now? What should we do?
Okay, that's a perfectly legitimate question. The planning commission will make a decision based on what they heard in their hearing. Is the hearing closed?
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
It's my opinion, and I might be wrong, but I believe the planning commission already approved number 29.
I thought they did too.
And that's our position.
And-
We talked about it the other night.
Yeah.
Jonathan was there, and I believe that I think we all agreed on the planning commission that particular one was approved quite a while ago.
Yeah, that's, so it's, yeah.
So now, last night, there were people that came before the planning commission who were, I think it would be right to say, in opposition to it. And since we inherited that, or I did, from a previous leader, I'm not sure that there was enough knowledge or work done on it to make sure that everything was in order. So I reached out we listened last night to the concerns and said that we would address them forthwith. And I reached out to David Frederickson today and made an appointment to go see the property and the issues. This is before he talked to Tim. Peter and Elias and I are going to meet with him tomorrow afternoon to go through the issues that existed yesterday at our meeting last night. They may not exist anymore, but I think we need to, I want to see it on foot, and that's good. And so I think that once we do that, we can then, let's say, report to you, Ivan, that we feel that the issue that we covered back a month or two ago and passed is appropriate. We stand behind it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And you're absolutely correct, and I knew that, and that you had submitted that to us, so the ball is in our court. Have we warned a hearing for this yet?
We have not received that particular piece.
Okay, so we have not received that particular piece yet. I want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly, so.
We got it the first time, we sent it back.
Right, there appears to be confusion. There is
some confusion.
there was confusion on behalf, I believe, of Peter and or Elias, that when the planning commission, I've watched the video, and the motion was to move and send to the select board, but they heard it as approve. And that's what was put in the minutes. So that's what they moved. They thought it was approved and that they were going to move on, and then eventually it was going to be put together as a slate that was going to be presented to the select. That's why I've actually been a little bit more aggressive on it because I was there listening and I heard the motion to move. So that's why I was confused why it hadn't made it to the select board yet. And I think last night that I believe that confusion might have been corrected at the very, very, very end, that this, the 29th, number 29, was approved to be sent to the select board. And
And that was based on a public hearing. And that hearing has been closed.
Hmm.
So what we have to react to, the way that the hearing process works is that whoever's holding the hearing, be it the planning commission or the select board, once they've closed the hearing, they can't take more testimony on that particular item. If more information came to light and it was going to change your recommendation to the select board, I would have to defer to legal counsel as to how that might happen. It has not been submitted to the select board yet. So it's still,
I think
the planning, I'm just thinking out loud here, that so the planning commission is still basically under advisement on this because since it hasn't been sent, but the decision was made to send.
I think Jonathan's perspective is correct. It's the word approve versus move. And there was a confusion. It's our opinion that we approved that, I think, maybe 2 months ago.
it was the January
And
something
it
meeting.
was, I don't know whether it was actually sent physically to Scott from Peter and Elias or not. But
Okay.
it was our position that we approved that.
Okay.
Now, to go further with that, if there is problem with it, then it would be my opinion that what we would do is bring that up anew and decide whether we want to change it or not.
Yeah.
But it's our opinion that that's done and finished.
So just to take it a step further, does any of this discussion affect it's a fairly simple ordinance change that you're moving forward, is simply to change from one zone to another on that particular parcel. And if the feeling of the planning commission is that they approved it and wanted to come to the select board, it's in transit at this point. We have a warning period that we have to wait once we receive the official written document, the letter from the planning commission. We have to wait 15 days. It's either 2 weeks or 15 days.
15 days.
Yeah. And so if we're not in receipt of that letter from the planning commission, and it sounds like we're not, and that's where the confusion lies, we have to wait until we receive it.
So they have to have a properly warned meeting to approve that
Yes.
particular thing. Then the whole,
I think we already did that.
well, I'm not saying you didn't, I'm just talking about procedure here. So once they approve it, not only do they send the amended change to you, and you would receive it like we're going to receive the 24 tonight, but they're supposed to send a report with that, explaining to the select board about that. We haven't received that report yet for the 24, but we will have that in hand before the 15-day period when you guys set the public hearing meeting for the 24. So that's where we stand right now. I would be cautious about this one, only because I don't know how it went down. It seems like there was some steps might have been missed, and it's one of those things that people could protest.
Well, yeah, and the problem is, and I've been through it, if somebody is not in favor of the change, they could litigate and say you didn't follow proper procedure, and it would tie the whole thing up. We don't like to get into that position, so I think, we need to be prudent and go back and look at what transpired. It may take another action on behalf of the planning commission. The hearing's been closed, so you can make a decision based on the evidence that you were given at the hearing. Also, you're able to consider, you can ask for additional information from staff, an attorney, even individuals to help you with that decision, but it can't be new testimony. It can only be clarification or as it regards. So we got to be careful how we structure that. If you're gonna change the recommendation based on information that you received after the hearing, honestly, I think we have to have another hearing because people have to have a chance to respond to that in a public hearing.
I understand. I guess my position is if there was something wrong here and it was not the right thing to do initially, then it would be my position that we would readdress it anew and make a new potential ordinance change and go through a whole new process.
Right.
I think that's the way to do it. But further information is I've got an appointment tomorrow with Reverend Frederickson in the afternoon, along with Peter and Elias, to go through it all as Tim has gone through it again, to make sure that we understood everything, that there are no misconceptions, and that we stand behind what we did.
So just so I'm still a little confused about, so it was Article 29, was it, what is number?
Number 29 on the ordinance, yes.
Okay, and that was approved, except there was a miscommunication about the approval. And so it wasn't sent to the channels it needed to go to, and then.
And we suffer. And we
I
suffer.
just want to understand. So it wasn't sent through the channels that it needed to go through, and thus there was like a 15-day waiting period that is passed. And
No,
so-
the 15-day waiting period starts when we receive the recommendation from the planning commission along with a letter of explanation.
You're asking why
So
that wasn't sent?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just curious, like, where is it? Like, what happened to it?
That's something that needs to be resolved.
Mystery.
Town staff.
Mystery at the
Think-
heart.
think Commission.
I mean, theoretically, it could go on and on and on if there, if it doesn't get there and there's new information and somebody else objects and.
I mean, is there a procedure for, it sounds like there's a clear procedure for if there's something bad about that decision or something suspect about that decision, then there's a procedure to restart, that needs to be done again.
I honestly think
Is there a procedure for what if it just didn't get communicated?
is there a potential for this information that apparently wasn't completely heard by the planning commission during their public hearing? Would it materially change the zoning amendment? Or would it just maybe change the planning commission's minds as to whether or not they could approve that?
I don't know the answer to that, either, but from what Tim has said about his meeting with the Reverend today, it would seem that this is all for naught and everything seems to be in order. It's just we have to find the communication from Peter and Elias to Scott, what happened to it and.
Yeah.
But
I mean, procedurally, if the planning commission in fact approved it to be sent to the select board, I think that has to happen. And we would receive it, we'd warn a hearing, and if the planning commission had a change of heart, they would come and present at our hearing their perspective, and we might deny it based on a recommendation from the planning commission. Unfortunately, if it required a change, and that was why I was asking if it would require a change or just a change of position. If it required a change, then it has to go back to the planning commission again. We get caught in this loop.
Can I say something about the loop, though? I was here 2 years ago, and Phil Peterson, when he was head of the planning commission, approved this. Okay, he wrote, you can look in the minutes, there's a paragraph about why he approved it. So
Phil
God bless him.
chair of the planning commission, presented the original list of 29, and he presented Article 29, item 29, along with the rest of the list. And
do you have that paragraph from him where
he had questions. There was a paragraph. We had questions about it, and the questions of this board weren't, and there was resistance. We had public resistance here at our hearing. And the questions that were asked and our questions weren't answered to where we felt satisfied, so we removed that from the list. And that's how we got into this.
So it went back to the.
And so it went back to the planning commission. And what we did, we removed 5 of them because we weren't quite comfortable. And the original 24, we said, you can turn around and resubmit these. We couldn't accept it because they were all presented as one large list, and that's what we have to consider. There were 5 that we couldn't consider. We said, if you want to resubmit the 24, we can deal with that. And we feel it'll be easy to do. And then you came in, made a pretty reasonable pitch. In my conversations, I'm with you and others, I mentioned perhaps we could reconsider this one. And we're stuck in that circle right now.
You good?
It's not,
Yes.
it's not a guarantee, I mean, that's why we hold a public hearing. We listen to what the public has to say and we consider it.
It's just,
And in the second round, we might hear something that we hadn't heard in the first round.
I'm sure you can appreciate our position here wherein we've been working on this for 2.5 years, have been told twice that it was approved in various situations, and thus we're still here.
Yeah, well,
And yeah,
We understand why,
I mean,
but
right.
it doesn't make it any easier to run a business though.
yeah.
town staff,
Or to
going into the
next,
process,
how to help.
town staff can't give you an upfront answer. This is a slam dunk. The planning commission can consider it, go through the hearing process and approve it at that level, but they can't tell you that it's going to happen because it has to go through the rest of the process. And then it comes here. If it gets through all the layers of the process, then it gets approved. But I think it's unfortunate that people at different levels were kind of encouraging you to say, okay, we think this is a slam dunk, because it's not. And I'm not gonna give you those words of encouragement now, but I feel quite strongly that it's worthy of consideration again.
Okay.
Because I have no authority until we go through the process.
Right.
Again.
I mean, right. That's the part that's difficult for us, is that the process is just like,
Formidable.
yeah, it's just long and it's a little opaque and confusing. But
We're creatures of the state. We have to follow state statute. It's very clearly set out in state statute. For a town the size of Manchester, this is how it's done. And if we step outside of that process, just the tiniest bit, that opens it up to litigation from people who say, hey, you didn't do it right, and we don't like this, and we're going to take it to court. And so we have to be very careful that we do it as prescribed by Title 24 all the way through the process.
I think at least, real quick, I think what would really benefit, at least from my purview here, is that I think we need to make sure that Peter and Elias and the planning commission as a whole understand the process of getting it here, so that when I feel like there was just a lack of communication or understanding of that, because I believe it was actually done originally on the first meeting right after January, when everything shifted on the committee. So there was a lot of moving parts. I think it might have.
I hope people didn't take this as any kind of a criticism. When a couple of meetings ago, I said that I think I'd like to be able to get some training to our staff and maybe the planning commission at some point, but I think the staff first, so that they can guide the planning commission through the process. The planning commission should be making the decisions, but the staff should be able to guide you through the process. And I don't think it's a big thing. And I know I've talked it over with staff and they're willing and would love to get some training on that. I think eventually Elias will be stepping in and
That's correct.
taking the lead on that particular part of it. And it's unfortunate, we've had a lot of turnover and a lot of change.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So if the planning commission did in fact approve this, and if you have a meeting tomorrow that goes well, could Elias send a note to the select board saying, I'd like to warn this, and could we get this going through?
Go back and look at the minutes of the meetings and to see if meetings were warned properly. It's a
Mhm.
different type of warning when you do these type of changes.
Yep.
You need to publish it, and it has to be out there 30 days before you have the meeting. And when we kicked it back to them, I don't know if that occurred, all right? So once let's assume that that did occur and that they voted properly, had a public meeting, voted properly and approved it, then that could be sent to the select board for acceptance. That's what we're gonna do tonight with the other 24.
Yeah.
After that, we have to set a public meeting, like I said, after 15 days, beyond 15 days, and under 120 days. And at that public meeting, we would discuss the suggested changes from the planning commission, right? And then we could approve it at the next meeting, at your next meeting. And then it would go into effect 21 days after that. And I'll just add one more thing about this particular issue. There's a map that's associated with this too. That has to be included in the approval process.
Yes.
The only thing I was going to say is that you also last night made a change that the planning commission is going to start meeting twice, like every 2 weeks instead of every month.
For a while, we're going to meet, yes, every 2 weeks because we're, I don't think, making enough headway on our housekeeping issues.
Right. So I think obviously that gives a little bit more expediency to.
And I was hoping to make your last 2 meetings, and in both cases had emergency situations at the farm, which happens. I have no control over that, and I apologize because I really do want to make some meetings, not to participate, but just to observe and
You're still invited.
show support. And it's a tough time of day for me, no matter what. It's right in the middle of my chores. But,
Can I make one final comment, Ivan?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So we had a resignation this week from the planning commission. Chris Glabeck resigned. So we do have an opening, and so if anybody is out there, you go. But you'd have to recuse yourself from this.
we did have some applicants that they should know that the position's open.
So we're.
They can resubmit if
This is a
they're.
reopened, position.
We should open it up to other.
Absolutely, yeah.
Also.
Yeah, I just want to get out there tonight while people are talking about it.
And we'll talk about it. I would like to have at least the chair of the planning commission involved in our conversation a little bit, because I think it doesn't make sense for us to appoint somebody that doesn't meet what he feels he needs on the board as far as the mix of.
I know Heidi and Greg had
Talent.
conducted interviews before. I just assumed they'd do that again. with
Yeah.
Opening.
Yeah.
And if you wanted Wilbur as part of that, I don't know. It's up to
Sure,
them.
Wilbur, yeah. I'll call you.
If you're willing to participate.
We'll do as I'm told.
Okay.
Thanks for hearing us again.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Groundhog Day.
We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
We'll be here. Enjoy. We'll be here.
Is it all right if I make a few comments and with the?
Sure, it's still public comments and you're part of the public.
I'll be brief. All procedural questions aside, just here to support the project. My name is Will Drucker. I'm a neighbor of Tim and Jess's. I live at 42 Palmer Place. Our property also has a combination of MU1 and MU2 zoning, so can appreciate some of the confusion about what can and can't be done. I sent town manager, Mr. Murphy, an email. I'm happy to read that verbatim, or I can just sort of summarize that here.
You have 3 minutes to speak and you're probably use up 30 seconds.
Fair enough. I'll just keep it brief. Here to support Tim and Jess. They've been great neighbors. We lived next to each other for a number of years. Really like what they've done in terms of providing services to the community through the daycare and providing, community vitality with the Wheelwright Imaginarium. Attended a couple of events there. And as a neighbor, I would love to see more of the same. So with that.
Thank you. These are the kind of things that we would love to hear in the actual hearing process, and there will be one. We like to hear the positives and the negatives so that we can make a qualified and decision on it. And if we don't hear anything, it's really hard. And generally we hear the negative stuff. If there's people that are upset by it, they'll come in and tell us that. And it's helpful to hear some of the other side so we can balance it out in our minds.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure I'll be notified of when the next, when the hearing meeting is, and if I'm available, I will attend. So thank you for your time and everything you do for the.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for coming in. Any other public comments at this point? Yes, Boulder.
At the town meeting. back-
Podium.
Oh, yeah, we have to, so the people at home can hear it.
At the town meeting at the beginning of March, a gentleman stood up representing the North Shore Day School and talked about its issues. A long time ago, I was head of the board of North Shore Day School and know the problems and the pressures. And he talked about having, I think, about 85 kids enrolled in it and just as many people on a waiting list. And I think that is a huge issue. And I was just talking to Jennifer about it, and she has, in effect, the same issue, a ton of people on a waiting list. This is a big, big issue for the town. And I would hope that you might put it on your to-do list, because if we can't help in that area, then we have a ton of young families who are going to be forced not to stay here. And we need those young families. We need young people involved in everything we do. And this is a critical issue. This is a big issue. So I'd just like to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, and it's an interesting issue because Manchester provides regional employment, that about half the kids are Manchester and the other half are people that come to town to work, which of course there's an employer in town that's paying taxes and adding to the local economy. But it's a regional issue that really gets addressed at the local level.
The state is helping.
Makes it difficult.
The state is helping more. I was just educated on that. Yet this town doesn't have the space to accommodate those kids. The families might get help, which is great, but there's no place for them to go. So it's a huge issue. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you for that. Okay, we need to, if there's no more public comments, I don't see anybody's hand up online. I see Jonathan's there. Hey, Jonathan.
I didn't realize
We need to approve the minutes of April 2nd.
I'll move to approve the minutes of April 2nd.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. And we have some liquor license applications. It's probably the list.
Here's an attachment.
Yeah, so you've got a bunch of renewals, they're current in taxes, no police department issues. And their current licenses expire at the end of the month, so we want to get this done for them if we can.
And there's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 of them, correct?
That's right.
Move to approve the liquor licenses as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's 4-0. And the liquor licenses are approved.
Moving right along.
Yes, we are. Okay, possibly reappoint board and commission members.
All right, so we put a new listing together for you of various boards. And it should be right in front of you, I believe. And we added a little explanation of what the board does. We have listed the number of maximum members and listed when their term expires. And you'll see all the terms in yellow. Those are the ones I'm hoping that you'll reappoint tonight. You'll see some of them, their terms have not expired yet. 6/30/24 is a lot of them. The problem we're finding is if we wait until that time, we end up missing people. So in a lot of times we have to submit this list to the Regional Planning Commission for the statewide informational grab. And in between that April and June shuffling, we end up missing some. So I just thought it'd be, even though those terms don't expire till June 30th, I think it'd be wise and helpful to reappoint them at this time, along with the ones that we have missed from last year and the ones that are up as of now in April,
Have these people agreed to?
as far as we know.
Okay.
We have asked majority of them.
And
So
I'll,
can we do a blanket motion to reapprove all of the highlighted expiring terms listed?
You know, it's not that many. I think we should probably, I mean, we could add it to the minutes, the actual names, but what we're talking about here is the advisory committee on cemeteries. We have 3 members. And they, 2 of them, their term expires this year and 1 next, actually, last year. 2 of them expired and 1 this year.
let me ask a quick question, just to make sure that if we do approve, this would add the length of the terms that they are allotted to, 3 years, 4 years, to after their current term expiration. So for instance, it wouldn't
Correct.
be a 3-year term from today, it would be a 3-year term from.
From whenever it expires.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on the 2 that we may not have extended last year, it'll be close to a little over a 2-year term.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. But it's Wayne Bell, Ray Ferrarin, and Heather Orava. And they've been doing a very good job, I will say. And then we have on the Development Review Board, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 6 members that were just, and these are all June 30th, 2024, and it's Catherine Stewart, Tim Waker, John Watanabe, and Cynthia Kilburn, who is an alternate. On Tree Committee, it's a committee of 1. I am the tree commissioner, and I'm also apparently on the tree committee. I didn't think that was a default position. When does that term expire? It's 2024. You learn something every day. On the Planning Commission, Leon Ward is up on 6/30, and we also have a resignation that I believe was supposed to extend until 6/30/2026. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so when we go through the process and put somebody in that, plump somebody in that position, they will fill the unexpired term to that date. And these are constructed so they rotate out and they don't all expire at once. So it's Leon Ward on the Planning Commission, and then on the Constable, we have Patrick Owens, who's also our Chief of Police. Makes sense. On the Service Officer, also Chief Owens, and the Deputy is Wayne Bell. For a Tree Warden, it's yours truly, and apparently my position expired a couple of weeks ago. And on Town Treasurer, Brian Vogel. And the date is confusing on that one because I didn't realize that his might have expired a year ago. So let's get this cleaned up. Those are the names. Any comments, questions? Now the motion.
Okay, I move to reapprove the board members as stated.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion is to reappoint the board members for a term consistent with their current position and what state statute calls for as a term. If any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's 4-0. Congratulations to all.
Scott, there's a couple 1-year terms that expire on 6/30 that we just extended from last year to this year, so we should probably redo those, the town treasurer and the constable. So we should probably do those at the next meeting,
Yeah.
because we just extended it to
Right.
2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good point. All right, moving right along. Okay, we have a Class 2 vendor license application from Everton Brownie, who's here. Welcome.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, there may have been some outstanding issues with this.
There was, first of all, he'd applied for a class one. That's been corrected and he's paid the additional fee for that. There was also an issue with the joint parking between the neighboring owner and this current owner that owns this lot. They've worked that out. He's moved back off of that joint parking area. And there was one other issue about, connection of electricity or water or something that's been solved too. So the two owners worked that out. He's moved back and next to the building. And so he should be good to go.
Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this issue? I'm not seeing anybody on the list of attendees. Mr. Brownie, are you satisfied with the new configuration?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
Motion? Okay, I'll move to approve the Class 2 vendor license application for Everton Brownie Jamaican Food Truck at 159 Depot Street.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Okay, we're finally getting back to the personnel policy. Staff has been doing a lot of work on this, updating.
Yeah, I'll just start again at the beginning, because Jonathan wasn't here through that process. So we started months ago looking at the personnel policy that was in place, referred to as the employee handbook. It was dated July 1st, 2011. HR changes so fast, and there was many changes that we need to make. So we started down that path with VLCT, and we brought it to you in January. We had to have the HR attorney look at it. He came back at us last week, and we went over every single item in there. There was some legal wording that had to be corrected, and I'm going to touch base on a couple of those points here in a minute. But we finally feel we have a document that is ready for approval. And so just to highlight, and I'll go by sections if you want to look at the sections. I'm just going to bring up a couple points. In section 2, full-time and part-time employees are defined. In section 4, background checks, there's been some legal changes in the state since 2011 on that. We didn't have to have a whole section in there about how to do background checks or when we could do background checks. We basically do it now at any time. In section 10, we've defined call in versus on call. When someone's on call, they have to be paid for that. When they're called in, they are just waiting for that call to come in, and then they would earn money once they were called in. So there was that difference there. Section 11 is a small section on closure of town office if there was some snowstorm or some event like that. Exempt employees would get paid, and then non-exempt employees would not get paid. So we added some language there that we could satisfy everybody on that based on the town manager's decision at that point. Vacation leave was unclear also, but we've clarified that basically those are going to be accrued in hourly form. Instead of you having 5 weeks or 4 weeks or 3 weeks, we're telling them you have that much time, but we're recording it in hours. And it works more beneficially in the long run. Incentive pay, section 26. He questioned why we had that. He said it's unusual and it's historically been done, so we've kept it in there. And it's not illegal. He says it's just unusual to see. So,
Is that again?
section 26.
Sick leave?
No, incentive pay.
Must be
Is that 26?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
I have sick leave.
But it's, but if you look further down,
Further down.
Oh, I see it. Okay, yeah, it's a subsection.
incentive payment, yep.
Yes, the town shall pay an attendance incentive payment on or around June 30th each year equal to $50 for each full sick day accrued but not taken during the prior fiscal year. Provided they attend that such attendance incentive payment shall not exceed 400 per annual employee. And there was another piece of that language up above that we clarified too.
So just on the incentive payment, so that's not legal?
No, it is.
Oh, it is legal.
It is legal. It's unusual.
It's unusual. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
And we're not putting anything here that's
Yeah,
illegal. Section 34, we clarified who was eligible for comp time and how overtime works. And there might be a little bit of negative feedback on that. Apparently, we had traditionally allowed employees to take a vacation day during a week and then still qualify for overtime. That is against state statute. So we had to correct that. And there may be a couple departments that are a little bit unhappy with that, but we can't, like I said, put anything in there illegal. And finally, section 384, on the very end, you'll see the termination process, and that is very lengthy and trying to clarify what we had in there before. So those are the changes that we've got. Hopefully you'll agree with those and approve that, and we can put this thing into effect. It's been a long time coming to get here. And I'm, open to answer any questions you might have about it.
I went through it. It's outside of my area of expertise. I trust your hard work and judgment on this, so it looks good to me.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the new updated personnel policy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0.
Thank you.
And it's approved. Okay, item 9 is something that we were just talking about at the beginning of the meeting. We have received from the Planning Commission a submission for zoning or land use ordinance changes. It includes,
Well, it excludes.
well, what I was gonna say is, it's all included in a report as prescribed by law, I believe.
That's right. You have two versions in front of you, just so you can differentiate between what was taken out
Yeah.
and what was left in. And we left the numbers as it was. So you'll see like 1, 2, 3, and then 5, because 4 was removed.
Yeah.
That's just for ease of reference.
Okay.
So going back to the beginning of this whole thing, this was the low hanging fruit that we're hoping to change quickly and easily. Obviously, it's turn the tree around and we're reaching for a higher level. But anyways, we got the pattern down. We know how to do it. So again, just to reiterate, you are just accepting it tonight. You're going to set a date, hopefully, for sometime more than 15 days down the road for a public hearing. At the public hearing, you talk to the public about the proposed changes, close the public hearing, and then at the next meeting of the select board, you could adopt it. Once adopted, it goes into effect 21 days later.
We could adopt it at the same meeting after closing the hearing.
That may have changed because I did get some guidance from the league's attorneys on that, and that's how they said to proceed.
But it used to be pretty
I remember doing that too.
common that we would do that. So, okay, I'll file that.
I just want to be cautious, like, I
Yeah.
don't want to have to fight this battle
Well,
again.
then, hang on a second, I have no, because you actually said, when you were talking to the Rice family, that once we accepted and we set the hearing, I believe, unless I was in another world where this was happening, that you could still have discussions or more discussions about them after they've been accepted, but when they got to the meeting for the publicly warned hearing,
No.
Just clarifying on that, because I think you may have been saying that based on the fact that you believe that we could potentially accept at the close of the hearing.
So we've received this
Right.
submission here tonight, so we're gonna set a hearing.
Right.
Somewhere between 15 and 120 days from now. At that hearing, we will receive testimony. At the end of that, if we're satisfied that we've heard everything that we want to hear and that we can make a decision based on what we've heard, we can close the hearing.
Okay.
If we feel there's more to be heard, we could adjourn the hearing to a date specific in the future. And we would set that at that hearing, the hearing would remain open.
Okay.
So we don't have to go through the 15-day
Excuse me.
Okay.
period again. But once we close that hearing,
There's no more testimony.
there's no more testing.
All right.
We can ask for clarification and
Yeah, I was gonna say.
how it might refer to, how it might fit with state statute and that sort of thing. But as far as taking testimony, it's done at that point. And the reason for that is that there might be rebuttal at the hearing, and then we've disallowed people from, that were interested in.
And you can make minor changes,
Yes.
but anything major kicks it back.
We have run into litigious situations, questioning what constitutes a minor change. And really, it comes down to grammatical, not technical areas, because if you make a change to anything that has technical merit, somebody could challenge that and say, well, you need to go back through the process because that materially changes what you were considering when you began. So for all the time that I was on the planning commission and after that here, we always considered any change to be a material change and we'd have to go back through the process. You could tell me I'm wrong. I know things change.
It's undefined, so,
It is undefined and we have run into litigation on it,
yeah, so you want to be careful.
which sometimes takes much longer than going back through the process.
So tonight, we're formally accepting the proposed changes and setting a date.
That's
We're
right. Receiving, yeah.
not accepting, we're receiving the proposed changes.
Possibly accept.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess accept, yeah, we're not approving.
right.
You're not adopting it.
So based on our current schedule of meetings, we have our next meeting on the 30th, and then I believe we said we were going to, I'm sorry, yes, our next meeting is on the 30th, the special session, special meeting. Are we going to continue on that same 2-week cycle, or are we going to go back to the 7th?
I thought that you were going to go to the 7th, was my understanding.
I think we should, because we have enough.
So in that case, then, based on the 15-day rule,
We could do it the
obviously,
7th.
we
We
could
can
do it on the
7th.
7th.
Do you anticipate a heavy load of agenda items or too soon to say?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay, I think that makes sense.
Okay, so then, do you need a motion to?
Yes.
Like to make a motion to accept the proposed changes and set a date for a public hearing on Tuesday, May 7th.
Second the motion. That's
I think under state law, we have to actually set a time.
At 7 PM.
Yeah.
That's right. And then we'll open the meeting with that
Yes.
before public comments and everything.
Okay.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's 4-0. We've set a hearing for May 7th. 7 o'clock.
Time.
Everybody be there. Wow. Town manager updates.
Just a few items, and one we've already covered. I mentioned the planning commission opening. So if anybody's interested in that, just send in a letter of interest along with there's a form on the town's website, short question and answer form. And that needs to be printed off and sent in, because our old system had it where you submit it, but it kind of went to the black hole. There's a Southern Vermont Economy Summit at Mount Snow that you may be interested in. I attended it last year. There was a lot of select board members there and various other town staffs from other towns, and might be of interest to you. I just thought I'd bring it up. It's kind of nice to gather and see what other towns are doing and what we can work together on. And finally, I was hoping to have more information on the Hordes property on Lye Brook for you tonight. If you remember of the NRCS projects that we just completed in the fall, theirs was one of them. But they're still receiving an abundance of groundwater. And I'm trying to reach to Josh Carvajal about possible solutions out there to help them. And he wasn't available last week. So him and I are going to connect, and I'm hoping to see if there is a viable solution to help them. There may not be where it stands right now. It may be just groundwater that she told me today, they've been getting for 14 years like this. So I don't know if there's an answer, but the project that we just completed did not solve their problem. But on the other hand, we have already talked about a major project possibly, Lye Brook and Bournebrook, an alluvial floodplain up above on the other side of the highway. So I've also reached out to Jim Henderson from BCRC today because there's some funding that's coming up right now that might be able to help with this project and Bournebrook project. So we'd like to keep that thing moving. I know you've committed some funds towards that. So there's a commitment from the board to help them in that area, help other neighbors too. So we're working on it. That's it.
And you've already told us about the opening on the planning commission.
A couple times.
Yes.
Trying to get the word out there.
Is there any other business from select board members?
No, but we are go for the unsung hero on the 30th.
Yes. And that's still good with the,
I think they're both gonna be here.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So we do have an executive session planned.
Did we know how to do it without Greg?
Well,
I got it.
let me just explain why Greg makes that.
I got it.
Oh, you do?
But I'm going to explain, Jan, that you actually don't have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's there's three reasons that we can go into executive
got that
session.
too.
Contract negotiations, real estate transaction negotiations,
Done that.
or personnel. For the first two, because of a legal settlement in a lawsuit that we dealt with back in the late 1980s, we have to have a very specific motion when we go into executive session relative to contract negotiations or real estate transactions. And that's the one that Greg always makes, where the premature disclosure of our comments could put the town at a substantial disadvantage. For personnel, we don't have to do that. We can simply go into executive session to discuss personnel issues. Okay,
That's how you want it?
I was there. I remember the settlement, and there were a lot of their aspects to it, but that's where that all came from. I mean, we laugh about it, but by law, because of that settlement, and the person with whom we settled is no longer with us. Great local character, but I'm sorry, hopefully he's watching.
Why is Anita here? Did you have?
Anita, yes, before we go into executive session,
Oh, okay. Didn't know.
we are,
Oh,
Like the last, yeah.
okay.
we are happy to have you here.
Yeah.
That's,
I just didn't know if there was
As
anything
usual.
special.
will there be any action taken after the executive session? So we're not anticipating taking any action after the executive session, other than to reconvene to close the meeting. So you're welcome to stay for that, but there will be no action taken other than to close the meeting after the executive session. Now, your motion
Just a motion to enter into executive session
to discuss personnel.
to discuss personnel.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Going in.
There's some M&Ms for you.
Oh, nice.
Denise.
Just tell you something about this.
Thank you, Terry.
Yes.
When you look at all of our pictures,
Yes.
me and Greg have an expired date.